Welcome to the Online Course Revolution. Join co-hosts Joeel and Natalie Rivera as they interview successful entrepreneurs who have used online courses to transform their business. The goal of this podcast is to both inspire you to share your unique knowledge, experience, and expertise with the world, and provide practical insights so you can join the online course revolution and make money teaching what you know and love online. In this episode, Joeel and Natalie interview Paulo Dichone. Paulo is a self-proclaimed programming geek who fell in love with coding when he got to college, even though he grew up in a small village in Mozambique, Africa, where he didn't have access to computers. Paulo created an app development business which led him to discover his true passion, which is teaching, when he started teaching app development and programming online. Today, he has almost 100,000 students, and he believes that anyone can learn to code. And his goal is to teach programming skills, but also to help his students become well-rounded developers who are successful both in business and in life. It's no surprise that Paulo has top-selling courses and raving reviews because his optimism, gratitude, and enthusiasm are contagious.
So we're really excited about today's interview. Something that we got to connect a few months ago now in San Francisco, and we're just blown away by his journey. And we were talking to him, we really have to interview you after talking more with him. And we haven't been able to stop talking about his journey to our friends and families. And because it's such an inspiration to see what really your mindset, and not only that, your belief system in yourself, and willing to take risk and willing to say yes to life. And that's really what you've done. So we're really honored to have you here with us today, and we look forward to really sharing your journey with our audience.
Yes, welcome.
Well, thank you guys. We've talked about before, I was so excited, blown away when we met in San Francisco, and I came home and I told my wife, oh my goodness, these two, they're just like rock stars. So it's an honor, the fact that you guys thought of me and invited me. I'm so honored. Thank you for having me.
Well, we are definitely excited to help you spread what you do and share your story, because we know that it's going to inspire our listeners. So I'd like to start off by pointing out that, as we already mentioned, your journey to entrepreneurship started as an immigrant to the United States. And so I want you to take a moment just to tell that part of your story, because it's so relevant. And so I'd like to know, what was that first time that you had the dream of coming to the United States?
Well, actually, I think I might have been 11 or 12, between 11 and 13. My father, this is true story, had a dream. I know this may sound very strange. And the dream he told me was that I was going to go away somewhere, in different lands and all this stuff. So, and I think that's where it all started. But even before then, I always wanted to go somewhere. I did not know exactly, I want to go to the United States but I just knew I had to go somewhere. And I was 11, 12, 13 in between. And so that's really where I can remember. And when I started high school in Mozambique, I still had that in the back of my mind. But I think the older I got, the more focused, the more specific I became, because I wanted to go to a place where people spoke English, and United States, people speak English. But most importantly, I think what influenced me in picking, per se, United States was because everything that we consumed, media, music, you name it, everything was from United States. And so growing up, it was all about, you listen to music, it's all music from the United States, you watch movies, Hollywood movies. So you kind of grow up thinking, I got to go to the United States, because that's where, where things that I want to do, that's where I'm going to be able to do them. So yeah, that's where it all started, really.
So, and I know I've heard it, but our audience hasn't heard it. I think It's amazing how you first got to the United States,
Yes.
And I think part of what I love about everything, even what you just said, is that you have a very magical journey of things just aligning. So can you share a little bit about how you first got to the United States?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, I was in high school And so in our high school, this is Mozambique. And so in our high school, we had what we call Peace Corps volunteers, right? So these are usually American students who have graduated university. So they usually, they can go anywhere they want to go to teach English or help out in whatever they can help out in developing countries. So we had two teachers. There were American teachers who came to our high school to teach. One was biology, the other one was English. So both of them, I had one for English, the other one for biology. Now, the biology teacher, her parents came to visit. So I was about 15, 16. I would say 15. Yes, 15 years old. And so when they came to visit, they were so overwhelmed with, poverty in Mozambique. They were just like, oh my goodness, people don't have shoes. This is really bad, coming from Montana, coming from the United States, wherever, things are different. And so they asked their daughter, my teacher, hey, what do you think we could do to help in any way we can, and they were like, well, we understand we could send money to an organization here, but we wanted something more impactful. They were asking their daughter, what do you think would be the best way for us to do to help? And so their daughter, my teacher, decided to say, you know what, you should take one of my students as an exchange student, because they had the experience of taking students, not from Africa, but from all over Europe, all over the world. And so they had that experience. So their daughter decided, you should do that because, except this time is going to be a student from Africa, one of my students. And so they were like, okay, we'll do that. Do you have anyone in mind? She said, yeah, I do. And she came, talked to me. She said, hey, she explained everything. And she said, would you be interested in doing this? I said, absolutely. Now, mind you, this is me already wanting to go to the United States, but not asking. I wasn't, being active about it, like, okay, trying to find, it was just more of like a dream of mine. I always thought about it. I always had it in my mind. And all of a sudden that happened, and she asked me, I think she had over 100 something students, but she taught a lot of different classes and so forth. And so she picked me. To this day, I don't know why, but she picked me, and that's how it all started. And so it took us about a year, because remember, I was 15 going 16, so I was a minor. So I had to, first of all, I had to get a passport. I didn't have a passport, and that in Mozambique took a little while. And then because I was a minor, I had to, my parents or the people who were responsible for me had to sign a paper, say, okay, it's all good, he can do it. In fact, because I was raised by my older brother. So he had his wife, his family, so I was one of his kids. And so when I went home and told them that had happened, that there was an opportunity for me to go to the United States, they thought I was just, kidding, or that was a joke. Because there's no way, what are you talking about, right? So it wasn't until months later when paperwork started showing up, like, hey, this is real. You got to sign this so that, like, okay, this is actually, so that's how it all started. And from that on, I had to go through the process of getting the visa, which was really, really intense, to say the least. But
you only stayed for 1 year.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And then you ended up coming back home. How was the experience of, obviously now that you've had this experience of living in the United States, to going back home? And then did you already decide at that point that you wanted to go back permanently?
Absolutely. Before I even had left the first time, I wanted, because I understood, there was a 1 year thing, right? You couldn't just go in. Right. So I went 1 year later, came back, and I wanted to go back to the United States, but I couldn't because, there's money issues. You have to have scholarships. So there's a lot involved. And so going back to Mozambique after my 1 year, I wasn't very happy, obviously, because I wanted to stay, but I knew that you have to. And so it was really hard going back, number one, because most people in Mozambique didn't quite understand, what it all entailed, right? This exchange program. Most people, when I say most people, my family included, they thought, well, he's going to the United States, that's it. They're just going there and go to college and live life and then start saving money. Hopefully it was something like that, right? How it goes.
Yeah.
And so me coming back, it was kind of a shock, like more of like, okay, what's going on? What are you doing here? And mind you, I'm now 17 years old, right? And so I'm coming back and I'm not happy, because I know what's, waiting for me. And I just, I just not in a good, place in a way. And so it was really hard because there was that, well, number one, culture shock. There's differences. I have experienced the American way of living, even though it was just for a year, but still. And so I didn't quite connect with my family and even with my other friends as well as I used to after that year. And so luckily I found my tribe, right? I ended up finding these expats and also other Peace Corps volunteers. Those were different ones because every 2 years they rotate. And they were the one that kind of helped me really integrate myself back to Mozambique, but not Mozambique, the real Mozambique, but kind of the subset of expats, if that makes any sense, right? Because they understood. And meanwhile, while all of this is happening, my transition and all that stuff. So I'm still working, actively working, trying to figure out ways to get scholarships to, get back to the United States for college. Well, every now and then, my friends who were Peace Corps volunteers, right, they would always ask, hey, how is it going? How are things going? Have you found a way to go back? But things weren't going well because I had some connections in Montana because that's where I lived, but it fell through. It didn't really work out. And so all this time, I'm letting them know this is what's happened because they would ask. So one of them decided, without me knowing, decided to call her mom and dad here in the United States and ask, hey, Mom, so I have this friend of mine, explain everything, would you guys be willing to sponsor him so that he can come to the United States and go to college and all that stuff? And they just said yes. They don't know me, they just trusted her, their daughter, and they say, yeah, of course, yeah, whatever you need to do. I mean, from what you say, this kid, whatever, okay, we'll do it. And that's how it all, so then she comes back to me, this friend of mine, she said, hey, how's it going this time? And he was like, no, still like, well, okay, here's what happened. I talked to my mom, my parents said yes, just like that. And I'm thinking, I don't know what to say. I mean, this is, and mind you, just for those who may not know what that entails, sponsoring someone. So if you sponsor somebody legally in the United States, if somebody were to sponsor somebody from another country to come, that means you legally responsible for that person, which means if something happens, this person comes here, goes kill somebody or does something, still you are legally responsible. So it's not, a light thing like, oh yes, let's just sponsor. And, no, this is a very important decision they made. And so I was very happy, obviously. So we had to go through the process now of getting the visa, which is, another issue. I don't know if you wanted me to continue.
Yeah, and actually it's funny because you've told us this story before.
Okay.
And what I love about it is it's like, obviously you get there, you've had this experience in the United States, and part of you's frustrated that you don't know how you're going to get back. But it was like, you're like a dog on a bone. You are not going to give up. It was like you tried every possible way. And but what I love about the story, it was like, in the end, it wasn't something that you had to force.
No.
It's something that because you were so clear of what you wanted, the right thing aligned for you again.
Alignment. I know. To this day, guys, I don't understand it. I could sit here and say, oh yeah, I do. I have no idea. I can't tell you, but I do understand now it is about alignment, and I'm very fortunate. But most importantly, I think, not to pat myself in the back, but I think, like you said, it's about listening. I've been thinking about it. In fact, today is what, the 24th, 6th, 23rd, 26th, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Well, the 23rd of this month was my 13th year that I came to the United States. So in 2005, on September 23rd, I literally came through Minneapolis, the entry point of port of entry, I should say, in Minneapolis. And I open up my passport, and they usually stamp something, and they say there, you entered, and it says F1. F1 stands for student visa, which means you can just, as long as you go to school. And to me, that is so important because that signifies like a lot. It's like, it looks so like nothing now, but going back, I started thinking, oh my goodness, the things that had to happen for me to today be here sitting with you guys. I can't believe it.
Well, and even the fact of, like you had talked to us about, getting your visa and getting rejected time and time and time again. And then was it your first sponsor?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that was an uncle, yes.
Yeah, so if you want to take a moment just to tell the story of what it took to get your visa, because obviously not everybody listening is going to immigrate to a country, but this process that you went through of getting the visa and trying every path you could and staying dedicated is exactly what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, we can clearly see that everything that you went through really prepared you for what you're doing now. But I'd love you just to share that story briefly.
Rejection. Okay. So I think to understand this is, so if you are, leaving your country and come to any other country, but like we're talking about United States, so I will make it specific, of course. You have to go through the embassy of the United States, which is a piece of land in a house, literally, that if you're inside, you are technically United States, okay? So the process, it's very simple, but it can be complicated. So the idea is anybody who's coming to the United States is considered an immigrant. I wasn't an immigrant, right? So if you say you're an immigrant, that means you're migrating to that place, which means you're going to go to live there, forever, right? Well, they don't like that. No country likes that, right? Because there's other things, right? So you have to prove to them, in order for them to give the visa, that you have ties to your country. Now, you could say, well, okay, great. If you have your, ties to your country, could be your mom, your dad, if you have kids, whatever, right? Well, that doesn't mean anything to them. The ties to your country is more a financial tie, because that means, well, if you have a lot of money living home or business or things like that, you're tied to it, meaning you always want to go back to tend to it. That's the idea. Well, you can see that I'm 19 years old. I have no money. The only tie I have is the tie to my family. So that's not enough, right? So even though I have a family that says, we will sponsor this gentleman, everything is great, I will do everything that needs to be done. They have submitted their financials, everything, right? Because they go through everything, right? Even then, they were still like, well, we're not sure, right? So the first time I go to the interview, they say, well, this is not very convincing because we don't understand why this lady, Melissa, that's her name, my friend whose parents, decided to sponsor me. Are you, romantically involved? I said, nope, there's nothing. But how is it that she decided that, so they go through all these things because they're trying to, make sure, and I get it. I'm not, it's what it needs to be done. Nope. They say, no, we cannot give a visa. It's first time. Second time, the same thing. Nothing is working here. We can't give you because we don't understand. Third time, they start. So each time they would have some sort of, I will call an excuse. They would say, for instance, something like, after they've used this, are you romantically involved with this lady? That's the reason why she's taking you there, which makes no sense. The second time was more of like, well, we're not sure because this family here, maybe they're going to just use you. Like maybe you're going to be, and it's very legitimate, right? It happens. Like they're going to make you work or do things or, kind of. So each time it's very legitimate, of course, but at the same time it's like, well, I don't know what else to do, Third time. And the fourth time they rejected him. And mind you, so in Mozambique, it's a long country. And so I lived in the middle of Mozambique, right? And I had to take the bus down south, which is a long bus ride. each time I'm getting rejected, they give you some sort of a timeline. You can just go, okay, I was rejected today. Tomorrow, knock the door again, right? No, they probably give you 15 to 20 something days. I don't remember. I may be totally wrong, but a few weeks or so. So I had to go back home to get prepared again, go back. So each time, this is what's happening, right? And I'm getting rejected. I mean, it is so amazing because if you have ever been through an experience where it almost feels like if you're a miner, you go under, you're trying to mine for gold or something, right? There is this huge rock and your bosses say, you got to keep drilling this. And you say, listen, we've been doing this like 4, 5, 10 times. It just doesn't go in. I mean, there's just nothing we can do. No, you got to keep. So that's where I was. I was like, I don't know why. I don't know what am I going to do. I'll just keep doing it. So in my mind, I thought, well, I'll keep doing it until they literally ban me. Say, okay, here's a photo of this guy. Because it's not illegal, right? Right? You can't keep, right? And so I said, I will keep doing it until they say, sir, if you ever show up here, we will just have to arrest you. Then I will stop. Okay. So the fourth time, this is very crucial to the story. I'm desperate. So I've been rejected. I'm staying at my cousin's house. It was at night, it was 6 or something after dinner. And I'm just, in a very different state, for the lack of a better word. I'm just sitting there. I turned on the lights. There was TV on. Nobody was in the house. And I'm sitting there. I'm thinking, what is going on? What is it? Like, I mean, no alignment. What's going on? There's nothing. I'm just, seeing a vacuum here. What's going on? And I think I might have fallen asleep or something. And all of a sudden, I remember I had an Uncle Bill. Now, let's go back here. Uncle Bill is a gentleman who was actually related to the first family that sponsored me, right? When I was 16 and all that stuff, right? He helped with the process. Back then, the first time was a little bit easier because, I was 16 and it was just for 1 year. This time, remember, I'm trying to get back for college, which means they give you the F1 visa, which means you can stay here as long as you're going to school. So there are people who come here, they go to school for 20 years. So if you go to school, you're fine, right? So they're very meticulous. They want to make sure. So that's the thing here. And so Uncle Bill, he's the guy who actually lived in Mozambique for 15 something years. And I had met him when I was 16 because he helped me with the process for the first time. And then I remember, Uncle Bill, I have an easy email. I go to my computer. I remember putting I probably put it all caps, my subject, Uncle Bill probably needs help or something like that. And he emailed me instantly, like really there, like what's going on? I explained to him, I don't think he called. I think it was all through email this point. And so I explained what was going on. And he said, okay, can you give me the number of the family that is sponsoring me? So I gave them the number. I gave him the number. He called them. He was in the United States at that time. He called them. And then he emailed me back. He said, okay, I talked to your family and I'll see I'll take a look and see what I can do. Believe it or not, the next morning, guess who calls me? The embassy calls me. Mr. Deshone, you can come here. We'll give you the visa to go to the United States. Just like that. To this day, Uncle Bill doesn't tell me exactly what happened. And mind you, I know this is going to be in the internet, but mind you that the United States Embassy, it is a United States entity. This is not a place where you call in for favors like, hey, that doesn't happen. So anyway, that's what happened. That's what happened, folks. So
magical.
Magical, yes.
When I think that what you said, though, it's very important for anyone in life is that basically you were going to keep doing it until it either worked out or until you were banned,
Yep.
And even for us, like when we started our magazine, is that we reached out to 600 different businesses in the first 30 days.
Wow.
And we were staying in an extended stay motel because we were committed at that point. We had, left our jobs and said we'd rather live in a box than like to submit to traditional jobs. Yeah. So I think our mindset is the same mindset of, and this is what every entrepreneur to be successful has to do, is to have that mindset is I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Yes.
I'm going to go keep chipping away at it. And actually your analogy of like mining for gold and hitting that rock, there's a good book. It's called 3 Feet from Gold. It talks about all these successful entrepreneurs. And really it's just that persistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the ones that aren't successful, the story says, is that it's like they have a mine and they keep digging and digging, but they give up.
Right.
And they don't know that they were 3 feet away from gold. So then when someone comes in and takes over the mine and keeps digging, 3 feet later, they find the gold. And so that's what, the analogy really makes a lot of sense. But actually what I love even more about your story isn't just your tenacity and your dedication to it, but it's that you recognized that you didn't have to be attached to it only working one way, that everything you did, like you would try different ways, you would try different strategies, and you weren't so focused it has to be this, that then you actually left that space for some other way to come. Just like even you sitting there and kind of trying to clear your mind, and then this idea pops into your mind. But the fact that you followed up with that idea is that's so profound. So a lot of people, they kind of get the idea of persistence, but they don't get the idea of being extremely persistent, but at the same time learning to go with the flow. And like you really did both.
Thank you. Yeah.
And one of the things that really makes me wonder is that obviously you're going to a whole new world, to a whole new place, surrounded by whole new people, different language. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to deal with a lot of uncertainty.
Yes.
And a lot of fear of the unknown. So obviously in your life, you've had to deal with a lot of uncertainty.
Yes.
So how do you overcome possibly that initial fear that comes with the unknown?
And then also, how can you see ways that what you've been through has made it easier for you to do things that might be risky or uncertain in your career or in your business as well?
I think for me, it goes back. So going back, people always ask and say, hey, so wow, you lived in Montana, you didn't know English, how was it? And I tell people it was amazing, because it was amazing. Now, here's why it was, because I had to think about this, because people have been asking me since 2003, okay? And I had to think about it. So why do people, well, the reason why everything was amazing, it was because the way I was seeing the world, right? So think about it. I don't want to get into all this crazy stuff in this world, but, I'm Black and I'm Montana. And I know, underneath all those big questions, more like, wow, in Montana, I mean, really, was that okay? But it was great. But for me, the reason why it was so great is because I was so grateful and I was so happy to be here, to where even if it was some sort of weirdness going on around, I didn't even see it. I didn't want to see it because I wanted to embrace it. That was very important to me. Now, going back to, understanding, I want to say, culturally speaking, Mozambique always prepared me to be very persistent at anything. Because in Mozambique is a developing country, and so things don't work as you would always expect. For instance, in America, you can say, well, now is 5:13. I can go to the plaza and take the bus. There's a bus, every 15 minutes. It's going to happen, right? So everything is kind of certain. Like people understand, okay, there's a schedule, this happens, and if it doesn't happen, you can call this person and you will know so there's that structure, right? In Mozambique, it's different. So everybody relies on everybody, really, and nothing is really set. So you always have to understand that, okay, things may not work, but you have to keep doing it because at some point it's going to work, right? So I think that kind of set, I'm very grateful for that, because that is the kind of mindset that's all I knew. Like for me, there was never the thinking of, this is not going to work. Okay, well, what else am I going to do? Like, I need to get to the bus. I need to get to where I want to get. Even if it takes 2 days, I will have to wait. Because at some point, if the bus doesn't show up, there's got to be a guy who's driving some around and can say, hey, can you just give me a ride? And it happens all the time. So that is the mentality that, I didn't come up with it. I was just raised in that. And so that kind of helped me to this day. It's the mentality that helps me, navigate my life in America, navigate my entrepreneurial life. Really, that's, I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I love about it is that, you come from a place of gratitude. And that's why we love your energy. It's because you are grateful to life, and you're looking for the positives in life, and you're like, you have that curiosity to life.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and also it's just a great example of that. You could look at your experience growing up as adversity, but to you, of course, it just feels normal because this is where you are. But that it just goes to show that adversity really does teach you something. Is that if everything just came easy, then you never would have developed the mindset and the skills that have made you be able to be successful, not only as an immigrant in general, but also obviously into entrepreneurship. But on that note, obviously I know when you first came, you're going to school, and there are some restrictions on working. So if you'd like to share just kind of what was your career trajectory, like what did you do for your career at first? And then also what was your first experience working independently or as an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, this is great. Thanks, guys. Well, when I came back, I went to college, and I did 2 years of community college. That was the best thing that ever happened. So if anybody's listening and they have kids, or maybe they themselves, I think community college is really awesome, because not only will it help you kind of focus, trying to figure out, okay, where you want to go, but it's cheaper in so many ways. And most people there are adults, tend to be adults. So it's anyway, that's my personal experience, I should say. So I'm pro community college. I know most people say, oh, community college is for, no, I think it's great. Okay. And so, okay, going back, I went to community college. I had to do ESL, English as a second language, which was awesome because it really, again, it helps with communicating, which is very important. And then I started taking classes. Now, all the while, I wanted to be a doctor, actually, a medical doctor. That was my ultimate dream. That's, it was a given. It's like, well, I'm going to be a doctor, medical doctor, I love science and all this stuff. But then I started doing research. I remember this. It was a summer, and I remember it was a summer before I would have had to then transfer to a university, college or some sort. And I was thinking, well, okay, so okay, I want to be a doctor, but let me do some research, see what else is out there, right? I go to the library. I remember this. And I was looking, there's, the what do you call profession section of career section, right? You go, there's books and all. So I'm going through, picked up this book, going through, it's okay, let's go to doctor part. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, this is going to be real expensive. I'm like, this is, in so many years, like, no, I need to start making money as soon as I can, right? And I go through, and I saw a place where it said computer science. So anything with science just, got me very excited, right? It's like, oh, computer science, what is this? Okay, so I started reading, and so, oh, you have to do this thing called programming, and there's this all crazy stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. This is the weird thing about me, guys. Most people want to be, okay, this will sound like, okay, I'm being humble, but not really humble. But this is a problem, and I admit this. Most people, normal people, what they do is if you see danger, what do? You run away from danger. Me, maybe out of stupidity, whatever you want to call it, I usually go towards the danger. For some reason, it's just wired. I'm just wired that way. The reason why I wanted to do it now is because I had no clue what that was. This programming thing. It made no sense. In fact, I went and got a little book that had this programming thing, and I'm looking and I'm like, this is like, I have no idea what this is, right? That's what I said. That's what I picked. It's like,
I love that.
It makes no sense. Right. It's like, really? That's exactly how it happened. So from that summer, I took that book, the programming book, started reading and trying to figure out what it was. It didn't make any sense. So I had 2 more quarters. So I decided to enroll in one of the courses they had, which was computer course of some sort. I had no idea even what was that, So I remember they called me like a week before the course, the school started, right? The guy calls me, the guy who was supposed to be teaching the course, says, Paulo said, yes. So you enrolled, this is funny. He said, so you enrolled in this course and we just have to inform you that this course is no longer available because not a lot of people enrolled in it. Like, and come to find out, the course was actually like typing course. It wasn't even programming. This is crazy, right? And he said, so just to, please allow me, I want to understand this. What exactly were you looking at? I said, oh no, I just want to start programming course. Like, oh, well, I'm glad this didn't work out for you because this is not a programming course. A programming course is this one. In fact, I will give you the number you can call. This is how, not aligned I was with, this career. But then anyway, I ended up going to that class, hardest thing I've ever done. But guess what? Next semester, I'm in the same class again. I passed, it was fine. I said, this is what I'm going to do. And that's how it all started. Fast forward, I then transferred to University of Whitworth here in town. And I said, I'm going to study computer science, but I had to work really hard, really hard, because most of the kids in my class, I call them kids, we're all kids, but most of the kids in my class, they were like, I've been programming since I was 12 in high school. Meanwhile, this guy here didn't see my first computer until I was 16. So for me, it always has to be like, I know I'm smart, but I had to work really hard to catch up. So that is the mentality I've always had too. It's like, I never assume that I'm smart. I always think, nope, I don't get this. I just have to work harder and harder to get stuff. So that's how it all started. That's how I became a computer science major.
That's funny. Hey, actually, I would vouch for the community college thing.
Mm-hmm.
One, because I used to be a community college professor, but also I became a professor because I failed my first year of college going to a university, and then I re-enrolled after having my brother pass away into a community college. And I had a lot of instructors that were really trying to help me, that really changed my life. And that's why I ended up teaching, because I said, if I ever am put in this position where I could teach, I want to teach at a community college because they changed my life.
Yes.
So, and one of the things that I love that you also said is that, you run into fear, and some of the things that make you afraid is like, I need to do that.
Right.
And I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes that uncertainty of that newness is that we have to embrace that fear.
Right.
And two is that you have a growth mindset, is that that you can learn anything. And that's what makes you very powerful.
Yeah, and actually I was going to say the same thing about the growth mindset. If you haven't read the book, Growth Mindset, definitely do, because it's going to describe you, but it'll help you understand like why you are the way you are, and why we love it so much, because that's really the message we're trying to get everybody to listen to. Is it doesn't matter what your natural abilities are or what your previous experience is. The only thing that matters is, do you want to do it, and are you willing to do whatever it takes, and that you can learn anything. Like here you were someone that had no idea about what programming was, and then had barely ever used a computer, and you said, you know what, this inspires me and I'm going to do it anyway. And so I'm curious, what did you do after college, like with that degree in computer science? Did you start out like as an employee, or have you always worked independently, or how did that all play out?
Yes. Very great. I laugh because this story is, when the more I talk of it, it's like, oh my goodness, because it's not, I don't sit down every day and think, oh, let's look at my trajectory. That never happens, right? So thank you. So yes, I did work for a company here in town, and for about 2, 3. Well, let's if you don't mind, let's go a little bit back. Okay, so I graduated in 2009, and then again as a student, an international student, as they call us, right? The F1 visa, folks, okay? If you're listening, go F1 visa. You can learn all this stuff. After you graduate, you are allowed to apply for a working card, right? So they call it OPT, Optional Practical Training. I think that's what it stands for. And so essentially it says, okay, he finished school, so he can have a year where he can go and work, and likely because my major was in computer science, and then it's part of the STEM, right? So they give you can extend it for another 18 months, right? So, but anyway, let's go back. So, well, first of all, in order for you to get that permit that will say, okay, you can work in the United States, okay, you have to have an employer. Makes sense, right? Well, to find employers that will hire you and then go through that process, it can be hard, especially if you live in a smaller place, such, where I live here in Washington. And so, but I again, I wanted to find a place. I wanted to find an employer, somebody who could, employ me so that I can actually be able to get that card. So I'm on my computer and I decided just to go look for jobs, what's available around here. When I go on Craigslist and I find this well, there was two friends who were starting a company. And so here, locally. And so I emailed them, hey, I saw your ad, this is my credentials and everything. Oh yeah, let's meet up, we'll do a little interview. So I went, we met after, oh yeah, great. We're going to hire you. I said, okay, here's the situation now. Now that you said yes, I explained to them. So, oh yeah, no problem. What do we have to do? I said, well, I just have to say, if you have an actual business, right? So it's registered, so I can take that number, business number, and then apply. So that's what will allow me to apply to get the working thing, right? So, oh, no problem. And they came back and said, yeah, by the way, we're not going to be paying you. I'm like, oh, okay. However, we will, obviously, you're going to be working because this is a startup. I said, okay, that's fine. That's no problem. So I worked for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And of course, I did get my working permit and everything. Okay, now the problem here is now after a year, because that's what's for a year, right? I have to apply for extension. So the idea is that within this year, they want you to practice whatever you studied and all that stuff. And hopefully by the end of that year, you can then apply for like a bigger job, all that stuff, right? So they give another 18 months to extend that permit, right? So, well, the thing is here is that with my current employer, which I think I ended up getting $180 for the whole year, really. No problem. They were going under. I mean, it was a startup. It didn't have anything. I mean, it was just like, hey, let's figure out this website thing and blah, blah, blah. It was great. So, well, they're going under. So now I'm panicking because in order, again, to extend, guess what? You need to have a business, any kind of business that is kind of related to what you do, what you study. And so now I'm panicking. I'm like, oh, man, okay, if you guys are going under, that means the business is obsolete, right? How am I going to? And luckily, the guy, he was like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to actually postpone our closing doors for another 18 months. This is crazy. So that you can, are going to be able, you're going to be working for us, obviously, trying to figure out if we can get out of this mess, so that you can get that extension. That's how it happened. I got that extension. It was great. However, 18 months later, you were only allowed to twice, right? The first time and the second extension, right? 18 months later, well, I can't do the same thing. Now I have, if I want to stay in this country, I have two options. One, I could go back to school. Two, I would have to find a business, a legitimate business that will sponsor me to have what they call H-1B visa, which is the working visa. Like any person who comes to the United States to work, they get this visa. Now, here's the tricky part. It's a sponsor base, meaning I cannot just go and fill out a form just like I did before. A company has to say, look, this guy, Paulo, is so special to where we can't find anybody else in the whole United States who can do what Paulo does. In order for me to get the H-1 visa. And you can understand that makes no sense because I'm not that special, right? So, but that is the kind of requirement.
You are that special.
Wow, I'm not that special. And so likely, again, I found this company who was willing to do that. They were willing to. So the moment you find a company and they say, well, yes, we're able to go forward and do all this thing for you, to sponsor you, then you're okay, right? But then you go through another process. But anyway, so that was my trajectory. Now, I know I'm going to, there's too much here. So it got to the point where I had to go through the actual process of getting the H-1B visa, right? Well, before that, what happened is the company started going down, which means that they started laying people off. And I was one of them who was laid off. And fast forward, everything ended up fine. That's when I actually realized that I cannot, be reliant on other people's businesses for me to stay here. By that time, a lot of things happened. By that time, I had gotten married already, so I had no problems already with staying here and all these things. So, but to answer your question, that's when I started thinking. I was always an entrepreneur, but when that happens, being laid off, actually on our vacation, driving on a vacation, and then I get the phone call. It's really fun, get that phone call from your boss, say, hey, what are you doing? He's like, you know what I'm doing. I'm on vacation. Oh yeah, no worries. When you get there, can you call me? And this is like I have 3.5 hours of driving, and you tell me that I need to call you when I get there. It's crazy.
It's not good.
It's not good. Get a hotel. The boss said, yeah, this is happening. So Monday when you get back, please come get your stuff. You and the other 30 people. We're done, So that's when I decided. I remember sitting with my mom. I was like, you know what? This is done. When we get home, I'm going to go get my stuff. And then I will really just focus on my entrepreneurship. So, long story.
So, were there any fears or limiting beliefs that you had to overcome in that process?
Oh, my goodness.
As an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah, just obviously you started out in a startup, which is actually pretty cool because it was good training, especially because they failed. So that's great training. Yeah. But obviously it can also be really scary. So, what was the hardest part for you as far as your mindset or your beliefs or being afraid or making a hard decision?
Right. I think the moment I started working for the bigger company, let's just call it that way, I think it's easier. I got used to getting a paycheck, right? You get a paycheck and it's very comfortable. You get home and everybody's happy. You got it. It's wonderful. It's like, addicting, right? And I think that kind of made me forget a little bit of the struggle per se, fears. But then when I lost that, I had to kind of go back in the mindset like, oh, wow, I was very comfortable. Not really, but I was comfortable because you're getting that very nice paycheck every 2 weeks or so. And fear really hit. I remember when I heard that I had lost my job, I try, you try to, compose yourself and just to be strong. But I just had this thing running in my head. I remember eating dinner with my wife, and I'm just there, I'm eating. And she, she's trying to be calm too, like, hey, it's all good. And I'm like, of course it's good, yeah. But man, and deep down, you're like, this hurts, right? I was afraid. I wouldn't lie. The fear for me was the financial. Obviously, the obvious fear is, oh boy. Financially speaking, like, what am I going to do? Like, what are the things? I have to go and find another job. But then, the moment I said I have to go and find another job, I was like, oh, I'm more afraid of that. Why? Because it's a cycle. Okay? Because I started thinking, okay, especially in the tech world, there's a lot going on, right? I can find a job anywhere, no problem. But the problem is, what will prevent them to get to the point and say, yeah, things are not going well, the company is not doing well, so yeah, I think, it's time for all of you guys to go, right? Then I'm back, right? So I was like, okay, I'm really afraid of the fact that I don't have a ways to make money consistently right now. But I'm young, I don't have children. It's just the two of us, my wife and I. Okay, I don't want to get a job because I don't want to go back to that cycle. That was my biggest fear. So I decided to swallow this money fear for now and we'll attack that big fear, which literally would haunt me for my entire life. If you think about it, we tend to work until we die, literally. So I figured, okay, I cannot do that again because that's not a good kind of fear. I want to eradicate that kind of fear. So that's what that's what motivated me to say I'm just going to go full on entrepreneurship. And I knew the risks. I knew it would be really hard. But again, being in Mozambique, I said, there's nothing, we'll figure something out. So.
Well, one of the things that's awesome is that you recognize that your biggest fear was the uncertainty of having an employer and not knowing when that would end, and that fear was bigger than the uncertainty of knowing that you would have to create your own income.
Which is really funny because so many people, they might have this idea or this dream of being an entrepreneur, but they're terrified of, being responsible to make their own living and the uncertainty of not knowing where their money's coming from. But what I love about your story is that there is no certainty in a job either. No. And that what we love about entrepreneurship, and actually one of the things we always say is that being self-employed is the ultimate form of self-empowerment because you are in charge of you. It's up to you to figure out how much money you want to make because you're also not limited. Like a job, it's only going to pay you so much. But as an entrepreneur, you can just keep getting better. You can keep growing. You can learn another skill. You can add something to your business. It's up to you. You get to choose. So it's like it's such a great example of the fact that really in life, we're always going to be choosing between one source of anxiety and fear and another source of anxiety or fear. True. And it's really looking at, honestly, and that's what you did, honestly, which one's worse? And we felt the same way. It's like, that's why we said, like, we would rather live in a cardboard box under the bridge than submit to depending on someone else to pay our income and do something that like where we feel really restricted and we have to work on their schedule and we don't like what we do or we don't like the people we work with. Like we're just not willing to do that. So we definitely relate.
Thank you.
Well, there's two types of problems. And I say this for people listening, there's quality problems and there's safe problems. Qualities are the ones that would really impact our lives, that would transform our lives. And then there's safe problems. Those things that like procrastination is a safe problem. Or for you, it was a safe problem, was, well, really the quality problem that you determined was going and dealing with the deeper issue of that fear of having an employer, and that uncertainty of it. And a lot of times we fill our lives with these like safe problems that we maintain, drama in our lives and all these different things just because we don't have to look at the bigger issues, bigger fears, what really terrifies us. Yeah. So, which is interesting again, because you have embraced uncertainty so much that your uncertainty was what most people would find certain. Which is, I have a job. What I'm saying? So,
yeah, it's like going towards the monsters.
Yeah, going towards the monsters.
Yeah. But like you guys said, it's all about mindset, And the cool thing about tackling your fears and understanding that, we're so resilient. I look at babies, I don't have a baby, but I grew up, I'm the youngest of 13. So my sisters and brothers already had a baby. So I grew up with babies around. But one of the things that's important about babies, they're so resilient. It's insane. If you go online and look, for instance, in most remote places in the world, like where people were, most of us in America would say, oh my gosh, I can't believe people who live there. You will see a lady or a gentleman with a baby walking around and baby's happy, he's running. And you're thinking that baby doesn't have, all the vaccination that we're supposed to have here. They don't have, electricity. They don't have running water, but it's growing. It's fine, right? So that mentality, like you won't break. You won't break. You could literally, if you jump over the bridge, then that's a big deal, right? But you know what I mean? And so, but it's all here.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, is fear of fear is our worst enemy. But in the moment, human beings are very resilient. Yes. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was sick and we would be there and I would be like, well, this might be my last moment. They're like putting stuff, IVs and doing all these things to me. And my blood pressure's through the roof. My heart rate's through the roof. My body's freaking out. And we would be laughing. And the doctors would be like, like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like he must be delusional at this point.
Yeah.
But is that at our core, in our darkest moments, we find light, because that is human nature. You know, and that fear of, well, can I deal with the situation, is a lot worse than actually being in the situation.
Right.
With that said, what do you think is your biggest challenge as an entrepreneur?
Well, my biggest challenge as an entrepreneur is to choose the battles, because it's just all about battles, you know, but choosing the ones that will propel you to go to where you want to go. Right. And that is, I think, one of the things that differentiates people who make it and people who don't make it. But it's all mental again. One of the things that I try to do every day, in fact, I don't know if I told you guys, but what I do, this is how I divide my life. I have this thing called self-journal. It's really awesome. I've started using this for about 7 months now. It is awesome. And I'm not trying to sell this, but I'm just tell you what I do, right? To choose my battles. So this allows me to divide my working or professional life in 13 weeks increments, right? So every 13 weeks, when I start 13 weeks, I go through, I write down what I want to accomplish and what things I need to do to accomplish those. And then it's some sort of like a contract even. Like, okay, if I accomplish all these things in 13 weeks, what I'm going to do? Usually I tell myself I'm going to take my wife to a nice dinner or something special. Not for me, because now I have this kind of like impulse of say, oh, well, it's for my wife. And I tell her, you know, the big prize. So there's that pressure of like, well, I don't want to be a liar. So I have to actually get stuff done, right? That is my biggest battle. So what that allows me to do is to be focused on things that matter, right? Especially nowadays as an entrepreneur, there's so many things. You open the news, you open this, there's this new thing that happens, or there's this new Amazon thing I should go. I mean, there's just a bunch of things, like trying to figure out, okay, what's working and how can I maximize my manpower, my whatever I have here to get through this and take me to other places. That is the main goal that I always, every day I have in my mind. And this helps me, right? It's called Self-Journal. I can give you the links and it's really good. So.
Yeah, we can put the link to it in the show notes in case anyone wants to check out what it is. But I love the idea of that because it makes a really concrete goal. Yeah. It helps you break down what you're going to work on. And ultimately, it keeps you focused. So more than anything, that's the point of the exercise. Right. Yeah, and we don't use a snazzy journal like that, but we do have a similar process where we do it on like a 60-day cycle. And we're constantly checking in and seeing where we're at and reestablishing our priorities and our goals. And it's huge.
And we hang it up somewhere visible. And then every week, you know, on Sunday we get together, we kind of look at what we're going to do for the week. And Monday is like the best day for me. Like I love Mondays. People hate Mondays, but for me, Monday is get done day. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, I hate that, you know, but it's like as much as possible. And I get excited if I get like 10 things out of my plate on Monday, and I'll work like 12, 13 hours on a Monday just because I get excited that I'm scratching things off. But I think that you're right. And I think one of the biggest challenges for anybody starting as an entrepreneur is knowing what to focus on. Because for us initially, we were like, squirrel, you know, this is happening. I want to get that done. Squirrel, this is happening. I want to play in that. And then we ended up with 5 different businesses. So we were overwhelmed, you know, too many things, and really not being able to really focus on what was going to get us to the next level. So I think that's great advice.
And actually, what I would want to know, obviously we've heard the story of how you became an entrepreneur, and just in a nutshell, what is it that you do now? Like, where are you at now? I know that you're an app developer. I know that you're also an online course instructor. So just give us a rundown of what you're working on now, and specifically what you're working on right now that's like you're the most passionate about.
Teaching. I have, you know, I've actually always been a teacher, because when I was in school, I was the kid that the teacher would ask me to sub, if that makes any sense. Like I was grading papers, and I don't think that was allowed. I was grading papers. I'm talking about like we call primary school, so that would be middle school American. Would that be middle school through high school? So I was that kind of kid, right? So I've always been. I enjoy it, and it's not because I'm smart or I have all these intellectual capabilities or anything, but for me, it's because it forces me to learn. This is the reason why I like reading. I like to I like to know to learn things that most people don't. It's like why, like who cares? But for me, it's a way of practicing my brain and understanding that there's so much more to learn, and that's what makes me excited. It's like, oh, I can learn, and so by learning, I can show my experiences of struggles that I went through trying to learn something. And somebody said, oh my goodness, I had those problems too. And you were able to come through the same kind of line of thought that I needed to follow in order for me to understand exactly, right? If that makes any sense. For instance, technically speaking, in programming, there's certain concepts that are so hard. It's like, if you talk to, a physicist, you talk about, propulsion or talk about rocket science, right? Those are really hard concepts, right? But there's a way you can take that stuff and kind of like deconstruct it and understand it so well to where you can teach anybody. So that is my biggest, I'm not at that point yet, but that's what I'm aspiring to be. Like I want to be able to explain things, technically speaking, to where people can really understand it. You don't have to have a background of, I took 10 semesters of computer science. No. I don't want, that's for a different kind of style of things, right? I want people to understand that, okay, it makes sense. That's my passion. Like when I hear it makes sense. It is not about the ego. It's about me saying, okay, that means that I have given the little gift that I may have to somebody to say, oh, ding, ding, there it is. So that's my biggest passion, to teach, to people understand, okay, it's not hard, right? It goes back to the idea of thinking, oh, there's obstacles everywhere. But the idea is to try to figure out how do you overcome those obstacles, right? You have to overcome the obstacle before it becomes a problem, right? So that's the idea. So for me, when people say, I don't understand something, that is an obstacle. When people say, I really, really don't understand something, that becomes a problem because they've told themselves, this is a problem. If that makes sense. So anyway, going back, teaching is my passion and really getting people to understand very small concepts, very simple concepts, but it's hard for them to really digest it. That is my biggest passion.
Actually, what's funny is that for us, having people get that aha moment,
yes,
where they get something, that's
the best thing ever.
Yeah, that to us is worth $1 million. It's like
you get it. Yes,
yeah, that is what drives us.
Yeah,
that is our purpose in life. And it's interesting also that you say that that's what you want, but really you're touching almost 60,000 people's lives right now, probably over that, as far as your student base.
Right. Yes.
All over the world. So you're doing that, obviously you're looking to do it at a larger scale, but realistically you have more students than some towns have residents. You have more students than like one of the biggest colleges in Florida. So it's impressive that you're touching so many lives in that process. So thank you for following that in your purpose.
Yeah, and I love that you're taking something most people look at as complicated and complex, like programming, and you're making it accessible to people. So it doesn't have to be complicated, and you encourage them that yes, they can understand this. And so that's so powerful to be able to help people learn. Like obviously we're in the same boat. We love to teach people, but it's really, you're giving them power. You're saying, I spent all these years studying this in school, but you don't have to spend that long. You can learn this faster than that. You can apply it to your life faster than that. And so we're going to leave with a final question. It's actually a two-part question. And that is, First, what's the biggest difference that you want to see your business make in your life? And the second part is, what's the biggest difference that you want to see your business make in other people's lives? So what's the legacy that you're looking to have?
Oh, legacy. Well, for me, my business is, I would say right now is the business of teaching, right? Online and all that stuff. But for me, I am so excited. I'm so happy to feel and see where this business is taking me, because it's taking me home. What that means is it's taking me to the place we're talking about where I love learning. It is an obsession. It's almost like a vice, if you will. And so that is the part of my business that I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm answering you correctly, because what was the question again, the first part?
Well, the difference that you see it making in your life, but that's absolutely right, is that it's inspiring you to continue to do what you're passionate about, which is to learn. Right.
Now, in terms of what I want, I'll just say my legacy to be, the basic concept is, obviously, like we talked about, is to teach people concept that otherwise would have been so impossible to understand. Like, it's too much, right? Because that's how we've been trained. But also, it's not just the technical part of the thing, because I've been thinking about it. It's all about solving problems, we talked about, right? So solving problems, your whole life is going to be about solving problems. So me saying, well, I'm hoping to empower people. I love the way you said it, to empower people into understanding that they can too do things. They can understand certain concepts, but it's probably so hard, so only brainiacs can understand it. But also it's to transpose that same thing into life, because it's all the same thing, right? This process that we go through, if you look about learning a language, look about learning a music instrument, if you look about learning a new subject, learning to dance, anything, it's a problem solving process, really is, because you don't understand. What do I do to understand it? Well, I find books or try and figure out, who knows about this stuff. I study it, and then I practice it, and then I keep doing it, and then I become a pro. That is the same thing. It's all about learning. So everything is centered about learning. Everything, us as human, it's all centered about learning. And so for me, my legacy, I hope to be something that people realize that it's not just about the technical skills. It really is about the tooling of becoming a well-rounded person at the end of the day. Somebody who can walk around. We kind of talked about this a little bit, how important can be, or how awesome it would be, somebody who lived in Mozambique or in Puerto Rico, or and then they come to the United States, and then at some point they feel so a little bit inadequate in both. Like they go home like, oh, okay, but they go, but then the cool thing is that, well, they can actually go to Puerto Rico or Mozambique and be Mozambicans or Puerto Ricans, and come to the United States being Americans, because we understand this dynamics of this thing. Again, it's a problem solving. It's part of being a well-rounded person. So that's what ultimately it's all about. It's not just about one thing. It starts as one thing, just like a seed, one thing, but then grows into something else, brings something bigger than just that one seed. So I'm hoping that it's a big undertaking. I do understand, but that's what I'm hoping to have as my legacy, really. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful that what you really want to give people is the gift of knowing that they can learn.
Yes.
Which is beautiful.
And not only learn, but I think that your perspective is so inspirational, because really what you teach people is how to play the game of life and how to be able to dance in different worlds and how to embrace life to the fullest. Meaning, like when you're talking about like going to Puerto Rico, living in these two worlds, to me, it's always been like, how do you play the game? Because it's almost like it's all a game, and they just figuring out how to play that specific game.
Right.
And once you figure it out, you can master that and do whatever you want. Yeah. And then there's always another game to learn, which is, that's why you learn and you grow and you keep seeking information. Yeah. Because to me, if I would say, what is my greatest addiction? My addiction in life is learning. And it's like, I feel that in you. And I think that if anyone takes anything away, it's just the reality that knowledge is power, but not just knowledge is power, is actionable knowledge, which is what you're trying to give people. You're trying to help people not just have learn this theoretical stuff, but things that they can apply to their life to be able to move forward in their life in a well-rounded way.
Yes.
So
there we go.
So actually, one final thing, not really a question that's deep, but if someone wanted to connect to you or follow you on social media, or do you have a website or an email, or how do you want people to reach out?
Right. You could email me at Paulo@buildapps. No, I'm sorry. Paulo@buildapps.com. Or you could look me up on Twitter at Build Apps with Me. That's the difference there. There's Build Apps with Me, not Build Apps with Paulo. Those are two main places you can find. You could also find me on Udemy. You can just type in Paulo Dichone. I'm there. Send me a message or anything. So we'll include those in the show notes so people can check you out. And if they want to learn programming or find out more about what you do, then they're welcome to do that. And we know you do a good job. You've got great ratings. And so I know for myself, I've always been curious. So,
I know that we can literally spend hours talking to you.
Yes, we've discovered this.
We've done it before. Oh, yes. So we're going to have you on again at some other point as our journeys continue to evolve, so we can also share with what you're at that point, because I'm sure a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to continue to quantum leap, because that is who you are. You're always looking for that new challenge. You're always looking, what else can I do? What else can I learn? How else can I contribute? So really, we just honor you for who you are, the inspiration that you are to this world, for setting that example to others, that you can come from one totally different world and really create whatever world you want by being persistent, by being willing to embrace uncertainty, by being willing to embrace your fears, and just being willing to grow. So thank you for being you.
Yes, thank you for inspiring us.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor. Thank you so much. You guys are my idols. Your story, it inspires me every day. In fact, I tell everybody. So don't be surprised if people start emailing you who is this person? So I've seen them. So thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, likewise.
Thank you.
Guys.
No matter who you are or what you know and love, there are people out there right now who want to learn what you have to share. We invite you to subscribe and listen as we interview other online course creators so you can learn different strategies and get inspired by their real-world success. If you're ready to join the online course revolution, find out how at onlinecourserevolution.com.